Hi viewers, in this session I'm going to talk about an important topic, namely choosing technologies as an architect. Today, technology is rapidly changing such that we hear the emergence of new technologies every day. New tools, frameworks, libraries, and architectures are being unfolded that merely keeping track of all of it is quite a challenge. Maybe the time when we start looking into a technology, it's likely it may have already been overtaken by another. Enterprises also do digital transformation, and it has become a necessity to keep ahead in the competitive market. An architect is an important person in the digital transformation story. An architect's job is to efficiently design a software or a solution. In their day job, they come across one important problem, that is how to effectively choose technologies. I'm sure all of us have come across battles on various topics such as Angular or React, open source or proprietary, code over config or config over code, cloud, on premises or hybrid, containers or bare metal, SQL or no SQL, the list goes on. So, as an architect, choosing a technology, whether it is a library, framework, programming language, or a vendor product, is not considered any easier these days. Should I provision a new vendor product? Should I just use that popular web framework of that popular programming language to build web applications? Should this be a cloud solution? Are the kinds of questions that architects have to answer today, with strong reasons, of course. It's even common that enterprises hire consultant architects to make unbiased decisions if architects within the organization can come to a common ground. Large enterprises will have many architects who are responsible for technical architecture for a line of business or product or project or even an entire domain. Usually, making a decision that affects multiple teams is not going to be easy. Yes, it can become that much politicized as well, and if you believe me, especially in selecting vendor products. So let's discuss some common aspects architects have to consider when choosing technologies. The first thing is the need. In choosing technologies, the first aspect is assessing the need. We at times see people want to explore cool technologies just because they came across it and want to suddenly incorporate that into all aspects of corporate development. Exploring is not bad, but should you incorporate that into corporate context without a need? That's a question to answer. The rule of thumb is not to try to choose new technologies or change tools or architectures merely to make changes, just for the sake of doing changes. Do not just follow trends. See if it is driven by a need. Go select a great technology if it aligns with your goals. In terms of a company, see if it aligns with the company's vision, strategy, and digital transformation goals, of course. If all of those match, go ahead and do the necessary changes as needed. Next thing is the cost. In an enterprise scale, budgets matter. As an architect, say you are asked to evaluate a monitoring product for all the applications in the corporate domain. You need to keep in mind the budget set out for this. An architect may choose that fancy software after reading an analysis report only to find out it costs a $500,000 a year, whereas the set budget is just a few thousand bucks. So, knowing the cost implications before you do further analysis will filter out that software that's near impossible to get into your company, no matter how cool that is. So, this may lead an architect to other options or even evaluate any existing options and see if it can be enhanced. Another aspect to look into when choosing technology is whether you should choose open source or proprietary technology. This usually is a concern for vendor products, not mainly when choosing libraries, frameworks, and other tools. Generally, not a usual concern for other types of software, such as libraries, frameworks, DevOps tools. or even a programming language. Some companies may be susceptible to that too. Analyze the company's history and management's interest and align your choice accordingly. License is another aspect that, as an architect, you should consider. Let's say your team is developing a closed source commercial software but willing to use open source libraries or frameworks in it. An architect needs to be careful in choosing software with the right license. Of course, you need to go take legal advice, and that's a must. Some open source licenses require derived software to be open source as well, so there are such consequences to consider. Even open source vendor software has different types of licenses. Some open source software allows you to run for any purpose, but there can be restrictions on downloaded packaged software. That means things like if you download the software from the company website, that's something that you cannot run in production. And if you want to use the open source version, you had to go get it from the GitHub repository, something like that. The source built version may be your only choice in that case. Some software licenses may require derived software sources to be open source as well, and sometimes also mandating to release the software under the same license. So, such consequences needs to be considered when choosing your technology of choice. Maturity is an important aspect to consider when choosing technologies as well. So if you are looking for a technology for a mission critical project, look for well proven mature technologies. So there are different metrics to assess the maturity: years of development, several releases, not the version number, remember that, a customer base with proven case studies, and many other factors can be used to assess the maturity. Another key way of evaluating a technology is for your team to carry out a POC, a proof of concept. What is essential is your team, not the vendor's team, to do the POC. Of course, you can get the help to get a better understanding, and if you need to, from the vendor. So, this should mostly give you enough clue as to how mature the technology is and how suitable that technology for your project or the solution that you are trying to undertake. Documentation. Quality documentation makes a technology stand out. Check how easy is the documentation of your technology of choice. Some libraries, frameworks are great, but they lack documentation that hinders their usage. A clear, concise documentation that's focused on the right uses is important. If it's a library, framework, a DevOps tool kind of a technology, the target audience is a developer or a DevOps. If it's intended to be used by non-techies, look at how user-friendly the product is and how easy it is to find information on the product usage with minimal understanding of the technical intricacies of the product. So that doesn't exist, look for other options. Team expertise and community. So let's talk a little bit about the community. Having a lot of people trying a technology, speaking about it, and reporting and fixing issues mean a lot of traction. It hints that a lot of people are interested in this technology, and that should be due to some good reasons. Another fact that goes with the technology is the team's expertise. The community will be a great input to build team expertise. If an architect is trying to recommend a technology that doesn't seem to have a strong community, he may be putting the entire project or the product in jeopardy. Today, developers also like to learn new technologies that they feel have a better recognition and thereby better opportunities if they happen to fall into the job market sooner or later. If a technology that doesn't have a demand in the market is brought in by the architect, developers will show their resistance, and that will eventually show results in the solution quality. This certainly correlates with the success of what the team is trying to build as well. So choose your team's expertise and evaluate the community contribution of the technology that you are choosing. Traction and roadmap. unless you have no other option. You don't want to use a dead or dying project or product to build a solution. Knowing where the technology is heading is vital for a crucial enterprise scale project. As architects, this aspect can be set aside when choosing a technology. For libraries and frameworks that are open source, you can see the commit history and what functionalities are expected in the future. Even for closed source products, and you can get a sense of the traction by looking at the release history, release notes, and update cycles, to name a few, to determine the traction of further development. For vendor products, you can always contact the vendor's team to know about the roadmap of the product. As a rule of thumb, consider products that have at least 5 years of life to do something significant with it. The actual number of years varies based on what exactly you are trying to build, so adjust as necessary. And finally, the support and services. For libraries, frameworks, and programming languages, this may not be that critical. Some frameworks and libraries are backed by companies that may also offer support and services. But for enterprise scale vendor products, architects can't neglect this fact, and they need to be aware of support and professional services options. Usually, vendors provide support when companies opt for paid support licenses, subscriptions, or whatever they may be calling it. Professional service is also not something an architect should ignore, even if the team has a strong development background. When a new product is selected, there are areas where teams would need professional services, either because the problem at hand is time consuming to solve by yourself, or it may require focused effort to get it right. Whatever that reason is, enterprise architects should be aware of those options. So, vendors have a strong partner channel and healthy set of system integrators who can help to do this, may also help in doing professional services and so forth. Thus, the channel strength of a vendor should also need to be considered. And yes, that brings us to the last part, actually, the conclusion. As a conclusion, you should know uh, selecting technologies as an architect is not easy anymore. So, we discussed some crucial aspects when selecting technologies. Any other aspects you see applicable, do share in the comment, and we'll talk to you on another day. Thank you.